6:02. See if you hold it over there. I can. Let's call the meeting to order. We'll start with the invocation and the pledge. Father, we praise you for this meeting and your purpose for it. We know that when we gather together, you always have a divine agenda. That even when we've done what you have asked, the results are so much greater than we could have ever imagined. Our prayer today is that your will be done through this council. Take what we have prepared and multiply our efforts as only you can. Steer our intentions to align with your righteous will. Remind us of your faithful provision when our efforts fail us or fall short. Keep us physically safe and guard our hearts and mind us from pride and selfishness. Keep love at the forefront of our minds today and the guiding light for all we set out to accomplish. Please keep first responders and military at home and abroad safe and looking towards you. I continue to pray for Kelly and her family, and in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So not an agenda item, but we're going to make an introduction real quick. This is Nate Smith, council. He is our interim city administrator.
I believe I've met everybody already, but I have not met you, ma'am. I was going to try to speak with you last night, but I couldn't get the chance. I will speak with you afterwards.
Sure.
But just thank you all for letting me come in and help out the best I can. So
We should appreciate it.
Welcome.
Nate comes to us from Fairfield. We're breaking him right on his first day yesterday. We had the CPAC meeting, and he's staying in a little house right here on Blacksmith behind David Houlihan's shop. So we're welcome to the small town living. I've had to tell him, grocery store 6 miles this way. Getting that small town feeling right away. All right, next on the list is public comments. I know we had a few people sign up.
Yes, ma'am. I've got them. First up was Kevin Malo, 806 Pony Lane.
So just when we talk about anything, or we talk about agenda items during specific topics?
If you would rather, so the only other item is the budget workshop. So if you would rather wait and speak during that time, you can, or you can do it now.
Okay.
But today is budget and tax rate.
Yeah.
Can we do both? Yes. Go ahead.
So I want to go over here.
Yeah, we want to look at you.
I'll get out of here. Okay, sorry for reading this, guys. I'm a terrible public speaker. Good evening, council, friends, and neighbors. My name is Kevin Malo, and I've lived at 806 Pony Lane in Valley Lodge for 32 years now, which is exactly half of my lifetime. And I'm pretty invested in the future of Simonton. During that 32-year period, my property was ravaged by the nasty floodwaters of the Brazos River on 4 separate occasions. The first 2 being in 1991, the first 2, 1991 and 94. The last 2, obviously, 2016 and 2017. During each of these last 2 events, the city government of Simonton acted swiftly and professionally and went way beyond the normal call of duty to keep its residents safe and informed, and was able to do so because there were reserved monies in place to lessen the burden of cost upon the city. I know nothing about the workings of what it takes to run a city in a fiscally responsible manner, but I do know this. Over the course of my 40 years of employment, I earned 1,022 paychecks. And out of each and every one of them, I socked away as much money into reserve accounts as I could. I'm happy to say that by making those wise investment choices, I'm actually making more money now in retirement than I was when I was working. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Also, I still have a very healthy stockpile of reserves just in case of emergencies in the future, which the older we get, the more you have health issues possibly come up. My point to all of this is that I strongly believe that if you've got money that's actually making money, why would you want to deplete the cash cow? I don't get it, it just doesn't make sense to me. I encourage the city council to work together to come up with a city budget that will support the future growth that is just around the corner from us, both literally and figuratively, while still maintaining adequate reserves for future emergencies such as floods, and I guarantee you there will be more floods. In closing, I would like to thank each and every one of you for allowing me the opportunity to share my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, next up is Angela King. Who's your,
I'm sorry?
Angela King?
Yeah, no, that's me. But I'm
Okay.
gonna talk when we get to the budget
Okay, all right.
discussion.
Okay, Susan Ladart.
Yeah, so I had a couple of things that I wanted to chat about, just to like information type sharing. So there was a deal made back between around 2015, Lori, that's what we call the Twinwood deal, or when Mr. McJunkin was mayor. A couple of things to keep in mind about that deal is, one thing, Twinwood has never asked for their part of that revenue. If you go back and you read the deal, which is very long, so I didn't read the whole thing, they can go back as far as 4 years. So I went onto the Texas State website and found out that Simonton brings in somewhere around $32,000 a month in sales tax revenue. About 25% of that is in the zoned area for Twinwood. So they would get, well, 25% of that is $8,000. The deal stated that they would get half of that sales tax revenue, so that is $4,000, which is $4,000 a month. You multiply that times 48, and I don't remember what one number was, like $176,000. Twinwood could come up to this office tomorrow and say, where's my check? And we are contractually obligated to write them that check. So if we start tapping into reserves, well, first off, you don't want to run a budget on reserves. You don't want to run a city on reserves. You don't want to run your household on reserves. Reserves are reserves. They're set there for emergency purposes. Things are going to go wrong. This building's going wrong. There could be another flood. There could be a million things that can happen. So you want to make sure that, unlike Fulshire, we don't want to get caught with our pants down, honestly. So that's my deal. Just keep in mind the Twinwood deal can always come to fruition. And that's $32,000 right now. If they wait a few more years, that could go up exponentially. So that number is going to increase as the tax revenue increases. Okay, that's all. Thank you. Thanks.
Can I ask a question? Or is that out of line?
It's out of
Well,
line.
we're in public comment right now, so you could put your comment out there.
It's not comment, it's a question. That payment to Twinwood, would that be a one-time payment? Or
No.
is that something that you're from here on until eternity?
Monthly.
It can be year to year to year to year to eternity. But they have, the only thing is like from today, they only can go back
Back 4 years, I got that. Okay,
Right.
all right, thank you, I appreciate it, thank you.
Nate, do we have anybody else?
No, ma'am. That's-
Anybody have comments that didn't fill out a sheet? You're good? Okay.
Where do you fill it out?
It's on the front. If you have comments, you could do it now,
I'm not
though.
really good at those things. But okay, so you have to fill out a form when you have a comment.
You could go ahead and
Okay.
tell us your name and your address if you have comments, and if you don't, that's okay too.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. New business is the budget workshop. We will be creating a consensus tonight on the tax rate and budget, basically on the budget, which will then tell us our tax rate. There's no action because we're forming a consensus. So then we'll publish our rate tomorrow in order to meet the 7-day requirement. So when we have our meeting next week, that's when there'll be a vote. So I know that I had one question about why we weren't having action on tonight. That's why. So the work has to be done. We'll leave here with a consensus and be ready to make our posts tomorrow online. trying to decide the best order. So a few things. You guys have the orange sheets. That was when we came back with the 37-cent proposal last week. So this budget was written on the 37-cent proposal that after budget meeting number 2, we left with what we thought was a consensus of 37 cents, created this. It's still on the table. If you all want to discuss it, you want to think more about it, it'll need some discussion because the certified tax roll came back at 114 million instead of 130, which makes our no new revenue rate would be higher than the 37 cents we estimated when we got our preliminary. If that makes any sense to you.
This one was
we
at
keep talking.
37 and this one was at 39, I thought. Or is it backwards? This one's at 39, this one's at 37.
This
Just to keep it straight.
The orange is
The orange is
The orange is 37, okay.
Mhm.
So then this one was the one at
The
30.
pink was our preliminary, like let's use this to work on.
Okay.
So, all that to say, Mr. Turner said, I don't love this rate, I want to have a lower rate than that. You came with your alternate budget items and said, I'd like to have 27 cents. And so since then, thank you, I've been doing all the versions, trying to collect all the information. Maybe the best thing to do is start with responding to the things that you brought, Courtney, on your list.
Okay.
Because we went through it kind of quickly, but it was based on $309,000, which is instead of the $499,000, which would be the no new revenue rate that we originally proposed. And some of those numbers are still the same if the council wants to make modifications on a few line items. The idea here is, as a whole, you got to do some higher level decision, and then we can decide on each item if we want to make specific changes. Are you still of the mindset that you want to fund part of your budget out of reserves? Have you thought about that and have heard from the public and have a different opinion about that than the other day? I have some more versions that I'll bring out in a minute, if that's what you guys want to talk about, that would balance the budget with a few cuts and take all of the road work out. And the reason that is written that way is when we survived on a 20-something tax rate for the last 10 years, there was no money to build reserves. So in 2018, let me make sure I say the right years, we've been through this cluster of floods again, with 2016 having Tax Day and Memorial Day, and 2017 having Harvey. And so when we got here in 2018, the city had $500,000 basically in reserves, and it was in CDs. We've been able to take that money and grow it to the reserves we have today, mainly because of investing it and getting great rates of return and using municipal products instead of CDs, which are more traditional. If we go back to a 20-something cent tax rate, we have to be prepared that we won't be able to build reserves or extra projects like the $200,000 that we allocated for the comprehensive plan. That's your decision if you don't want to do that. But we can talk more in depth about it, but there's not going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars of road money. And you know, most of you live in Valley Lodge, the roads in Valley Lodge are just crumbling. And we have our estimates that show us it's going to cost $2 to $4.5 million to repair those roads. And that's not converting to concrete or anything more permanent, but it could be milling up and relaying it, or it could be overlays, which I know y'all have that from before too. So just general numbers. So we've got these millions of dollars in road work. So if we decide that we're going to fund those projects in some way other than the tax rate, what is that? Are we going to spend, if we said it's $2 million worth of road work to make it a big impact, are we going to spend $2 million out of our reserves And then what are we gonna do? So I'm kind of giving you some like food for thought for a second. I know that you've had all week to be mulling this over. But I have a couple of things that I just want to add to it, so that then we can start drilling down. I personally am of the mind that healthy reserves are really important. We need to agree, what are healthy reserves? What's the number? How much should that be? There is a pretty common municipal recommendation that a city should have at least 50% of its annual budget as the minimum reserve for your operating. I probably should use operating and not budget. So in our case, that would be, let's say, $500,000. Then, how much money do we want to have in our reserves that we don't touch and it is for emergency? So that when we have these years of clusters of floods or COVID or some other catastrophe happens, that we can fund ourselves and help our residents with whatever capacity. You know, if that's deploying Garner and the county for flood or some other response. You know, is that $1 million? I think that's a very minimum personally. But y'all have to decide, what is a minimum reserve number to you? And then that'll lead you into, are we going to spend our reserves to fund our budget? Then back to what we were saying before is, how do you rebuild? If you're going to keep your tax rate in the 20s, how do we afford to add back to those coffers so that we're ready for an emergency? I'll give you an example. In 2018, we came in and there was $500,000 in CDs. Great, there was money here, that's fantastic, but we had just funded 3 events in a row, and it was hurricane season. I got here in May, it's hurricane season again. We were all feeling war weary for darn sure, and I was praying every day that there wasn't a hurricane that year, because $500,000 wasn't going to go very far to help people. Plus, council had made a decision to pay for permitting, inspections, and all those things to try to help everybody get back on their feet because it was so widespread. Well, that cost us $500,000. Maybe council wouldn't decide to do that again, but we wouldn't have made it very far, and we certainly wouldn't have had any extra money in case something else happened if we had a hurricane that year. So it could be uncommon, and I know some of us have talked about we can't run our city based on what ifs, but there are a lot of what ifs that we need to plan for. So setting your minimum reserves, really important to have everybody in agreement about that. I know that I've mentioned it several times, but I'm going to say it again while we're on our meeting today. I'm thrilled that we may not have to pay anything for the redesign and installation of the new intersection, but until that is a signed agreement that says Simonton has no obligation, I don't feel good planning that number is 0. You could say you think our obligation could be something else than $1 million, but planning for it to be 0 is dangerous for us because they could say, all right, we're ready to go. Sorry, the funding changed and you need to contribute. A few things that we need to plan to pay out that aren't they're in the budget, but as we go forward into the new budget year, if they're not already paid, we talked about the comprehensive plan. So by the end of the year, we will have collected the tax money that equals the $200,000 that we budgeted for that. It can't just go into, well, we didn't spend that last year, so let's spend it now, because we're obligated to pay it. So we moved the money out of that line item, and it'll either be gone because we are going to reduce our tax rate, or we could put it in roads, or wherever you decide you want to put it. But we just, for the new income, but we can't take the income that's been for this year. Got to remember that that's not on the table for spending. Simonton has done that before by accident, and then we had a big transfer out of reserves to pay for something that would have been by grant money. Comprehensive plan, we talked about that. That's about in the neighborhood of $160,000. We're about to pay out severance for Erica and Jennifer. That's a little over $100,000. The sales tax for Twinwood, that is a real thing. I couldn't give you a number today. We have, I want to call him Joe. His name is not Joe. Hold on. So I have all these notes. We have a monthly report from him. He's doing the tax digging for us. Ryan. Oh yeah, that sounds like a lot like Joe. Ryan with Revenue Management. So Jennifer already had asked Ryan. He's been working on this for the last 30, maybe 25 days on separating the management district from the other entities that pay sales tax. It's a long process. You have to get releases from the companies, and he's embedded really well. So he's probably going to get that for us in 30 or 40 days, where it would take us 90 days to do that. So he'll come back and tell us anything that falls only into that district, how many dollars that is, and then we can calculate everything that's over the 15-cent tax rate and the portion that could be allocated to them. I will tell you that I have discussed this with Twinwood, and at this time, just sort of as a off-the-record discussion, it isn't on the top of their list to pursue us for this money. But it could change. And Susan was right, we are contractually obligated to pay it if they decide it's time for them to start collecting. They'd like us to get bigger and more established and have more businesses before they were to collect, but it could change. So I don't know that I would assign that a number today, but in the back of my mind while we're talking about reserves, that's something to just keep a nugget back there.
Roy, I have a quick question. In any of the Twinwood deal, are we obligated to help fund any of the infrastructure?
I'm not versed enough in it to give you that answer off the top of my head.
Because if we are, it would be a significant amount of money as well.
Yeah.
So what is the city gaining from paying them? Like, what is Twinwood doing for the city for us to pay them potentially 50% of, just because it's on their property? Or
So the agreement was originally written, I'm sorry, council, is it okay with you if we talk about this agreement for a second?
I think it would all benefit us in the
Okay.
town.
All right. So the nutshell of the agreement was that Twinwood would be able to have the opportunity to have some great rules and allowances for them to build, meaning things like building standards from 2006 instead of whatever the current standards are that the city is using by the time they get ready to build.
on their property or?
On their property, but in the agreed area that's in the, we're going to call it in the district. The terminology is different, but
I think the city's
For the
operating
umbrella.
1990 ICA codes.
I think we've had an update. But in theory, by the time they get ready to go, whatever version we're in, if it's newer than the one that's agreed in the agreement, I hate to use agree that many times in a sentence, but then they would be able to do that. And so there are quite a few things in there like that. The city, at that time, the benefit to us was to create this ribbon of 100-foot wide ribbon going as far up towards I-10 as we could, because annexation by the city of Houston was a real threat. They have their own set of rules they were operating by. They did not have to have contiguous property in order to annex, and they were really out of hand with it. So that was the biggest benefit at that time. Things have changed. The legislature has just changed annexation, so that part may not even be valid anymore. But we still have to abide by the terms that are in the agreement. They want to be fair, but honestly, it was written very much to their advantage because they had more things and more power and more consultants and more money. And our city attorney did the very best job he possibly could to advise us, but hindsight is 2020. I would change that agreement today if I could. I've already started that discussion with them. We need some more high-powered folks on our team before we go back to the table with them.
Sure. Does that agreement have a deadline? I mean, a end date?
Expiration date.
An end date?
It does, but I believe it was written for 45 years? 45 years.
So that's not uncommon. I know that the council in Fulshire, when Cross Creek was being developed, made some deals with Severn Trent and the Mud District, and with Johnson Controls that have created a high taxing entity for Prospect Ranch?
Well, their original agreement was written by the same attorney, the same guy, Steve Robbins. So we have the same less than desirable on some of those things that they did. Fortunately, we have the opportunity to learn from the mistakes that they made and then what they did to change it.
Steve's one of the best.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and if he was on our side, we would be happy with that. But if we could
Probably
change
would afford
it, yeah, so we need somebody equally good that will help us once we get ready to negotiate or try to renegotiate that with them.
So just so I make sure I'm understanding correctly, in the future, when more businesses come and we grow like we know we're going to, the more revenue that we start bringing in as a city, the more revenue we're going to be paying out to Twinwood, in a sense, not getting a return on, there's no value to the city any longer.
The value is that you have more commercial business here because they make it desirable for them to come.
Okay.
So it should be, in theory, it should be a win-win because half of the revenue in the district and, above the percentage is better than $0. That's not a highly technical explanation, but generally, so the benefit is for them to draw businesses and rooftops here because of the quality of what they would like to develop.
Got it.
Does that make sense? Other questions about the agreement while we're talking about what the financial impact could be on the budget? Okay. Just a couple more things and then I'll let you go on. We'll move on. But economic downturn or recession is predicted for the end of this year into next year. I am no expert at that, but Forbes is saying that it could be less painful than some of the recessions that we've had, but it probably will last longer. My thought is we got to be real careful about spending our safety net when we know that we can't continue at the rate that we have been. So our growth, our values could change. I'm going to tell you about $19 million in a second on our value. The cost of everything is going up. So while we've had a 20-something tax rate for a long time, you can't buy the same amount of things as a city or personally that you could 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. There's Nate came in and of course was able to snap his fingers and pick up the information that I was trying to dig for all week about Consumer Price Index. This is a historical calendar from 2018 to 2022 and shows the changes, all of them increases in our area over the past however many years that is, 2018, 5 years, and that's up to 15%. Either with all items, less food and energy is 14.7%, and the CPI for urban wage earners and clerical workers for all items, putting food and energy back in, is 15.9% over 5 years. So we got to keep in mind what you can buy for 27 cents, 22 cents, whatever our number is not the same now that it was even 5 years ago. And there's no indication that it's going back anytime soon. So again, kind of talking to spending reserves makes me nervous. So it doesn't mean you can't do it, but it'd be really important for us to be careful about that. We talked about road repair. I was gonna just suggest that if we go with the 37 cents or something like that, you could dedicate that money to roads. I know we previously talked about that idea, so that you're not spending from reserves in order to keep road projects going. You could take some items out of the budget. I know I just said I'd do this first, but I'm doing it second. Courtney's suggestions the other day where you could take some items out of there that she recommended that could be about $19,000 worth. So let's say you put the 220 or whatever it is, 30, that would come from that additional 10 cents of tax rate. Put that money with $20,000 of savings you can cut out of the regular budget by some of your miscellaneous items. you can take a chunk out of that road without spending reserves. Just an idea. I'm going to say one thing about Fulshire, and probably you'll have heard this, but if not, the city of Fulshire comes up sometimes in this discussion because they have a 22-cent tax rate. They also, though, bring in over $8 million in sales tax. They have mud taxes and they sell utilities, so they have revenue from those utilities. I didn't know what their total income is, but we can't compare ourselves to other cities that are heavy in commercial because we're not there yet. But what we could do is keep ourselves on solid financial footing by making some hard sacrifices right now. Like, I don't like my tax bill either, but all of us get busy and get our EDCs running and get more of that commercial in here, because the more there is, the less burden there is on the homeowner. And we can bring those rates back down to the 22-cent range and be somebody like Fulshire before you know it.
So Lori, just for the FYI, the difference between 37 and 39 is $22,800, which is pretty much the budget that you could cut if you cut out the things that Courtney wanted to cut out. Close.
We have to go to 37 though because of our increase in appraised value. So we have, the highest we could go was 37.
So what happened was,
That's where the $20 million comes in.
yeah, so the preliminary tax roll and the certified, appraisal roll, not tax roll, the preliminary and the certified has a difference of almost $19 million and change. We'll call it 20 for round numbers. We need to go with certified right now because that's what's official. Nate was able to talk to the tax office today at the 11th hour. We've been calling them for a week about this. About $18 million of that is anticipated that it could come back in, but it won't happen before our budget is due. So if that happens, it's still in the ARB, review board. Even though it's past the deadline, for all that to happen. There are 38 properties, I think it's 38 properties, Nate?
Yes, ma'am. There are
38
38 properties still in the ARB
That are
process.
still in the process for some reason. So I was reaching out to other cities to find out, is it us? What's happening? Why are we having this 15% change? Because usually there's almost no change between preliminary and certified. And there are some other changes in other cities, but like Missouri City has 7%. Meadows Place is 4%. So it is unusual. I don't know what the 38 properties are. I'm just letting you know so that it doesn't come as a surprise later. All right, why didn't you tell us about that? So it could come back to us, and then what would happen is it would just be a collection overage, because we will have determined our tax rate, and whatever the number is, it'll come in however it comes in. But we can't count on that money at this point.
If it does, it's $74,000.39.
So we're gonna go with the $114 million certified roll. Pardon me. We could still, whatever the revenue rate is that you all are happy with to fund the budget, we'll make sure the budget balances, but then you need to make the decisions about basically how we're gonna do that.
Okay, I got a quick apology to make because I
That's
think
okay.
I added you a lot of undue heartache in misutilizing a word. When I said reserves, when we were discussing this, this is not utilizing reserves at all. This just takes it down to a 27.5-cent rate. When I mentioned reserves, I was talking about funding this project
Roads.
after the money. I said, whatever is left after we pay the, I couldn't say severance in the last meeting because it wasn't done yet, but the severance and all the other things, as well as the comprehensive plan, whatever is left in the fund budget from this year's 44 cents is what I was saying we could put towards this, not take any of the $3.5 million that is currently making us money and in the bank and all that good stuff and pull it out to do that. So we're on schedule to have about 630, I think it is, estimated tax dollars still left in our, we call it reserves, and that's where I screwed up and used the wrong word, in our bank account, if you will, from this year. Now, we can easily not do this project or not fund the rest of this project and not utilize that money, invest it either way. This is a rate of 27.5 cents. Without touching reserves, there's no nothing. There's still $15,000. I think I moved one of the miscellaneous categories, I know I did, into road work, into major road work, because we've been collecting those funds for the past 5 years at least, and I think Jennifer told me the last year we did any kind of road work was in 2020 that we paid for. So, and then if you look back at our past year's rates, I know you said, what, 2015, you came in and we only had $500,000? Or 2018, sorry. So it was 22 cents then. It was 24 cents the year after that. It was 21.2 cents the year after that. 22 cents, so it kind of went up, down, up, down, up, down.
Right, with our
until we
values.
took that big jump. So I think at 27 cents, we should be able to, Burton's point, be able to not only suffice, but have money that we can put back into the system.
This is from last year. This is what Courtney's looking at that has the tax rate history on the
Sorry,
bottom,
I
if
just
you guys would like to
found
look
it on
at
the
that.
bottom. When I did this, that was my bad. Again, I apologize. I did
That's
not
okay.
mean to
I
cause
was
you all the
following you.
heartache.
I was following you.
Because I mentioned reserves when we were talking about this, not about that.
So, quick question,
There's-
Courtney, do you have, so, the money that is projected to be spent in 2023, how, you're saying it's gonna be $680,000 below the budgeted amount to be spent for 2023?
So we budgeted amount last year, or they budgeted amount, not me, I don't have a mouse in my pocket. And you have monthly income, revenue, right?
I understand that.
So you have your monthly revenue. Right now, as it's projected, we only have 2 more months left in the fiscal year. So we should have about $630,000 left over unspent money.
No, I'm
because
not
we
talking
haven't
about
spent
unspent
it.
money, I'm talking about what was budgeted, because that's not budgeted.
That's what would be budgeted.
So you're saying that, let's say we said that we're gonna budget $1 million for 2023, we're only gonna spend $400,000?
That's currently in the bank, not reserves.
I'm not talking about the bank, I'm talking about the budget.
That's what I'm saying.
talking
So we
about-
have 600,
I'm
and
talking
we'll
about
end up
actuals versus budgeted.
at the.
So you're
You
saying
can't
that their
count the
budget
revenue
is that
still
far off?
coming in, is what she's telling you, Courtney.
No, I'm not saying, yeah, you can, because it's part of
No,
our
you
fiscal
can't.
year.
But you have to look at the budget. What did they budget for?
Exactly. That being said, the budget versus actual, which is on one of these sheets, I believe this pink one, that I used to come up with this, we will have approximately $630,000 left in the bank to
I'm not
pay
talking
the
about the
remainder,
bank. I'm not
to
talking
pay
about
for
the
the
bank.
remainder of the comp plan, the severance plan, all that good stuff. So when I mentioned reserves, it was about funding the road
I'm not
project that we
talking
talked
about what's in the bank. I'm talking about what they budgeted versus actual expenditures. And you're saying it's gonna be $630,000 less than actual expenditures?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't think
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
true. You'll have to
It's on the
show me
actual.
that.
I can show you that. Let me find it real quick.
So,
682 on
I
that
don't
one.
think I'm over budgeted by $630,000.
okay, let's go through your sheet. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I can't.
What you were proposing, because it's not 600,000, but let's just go through and make sure.
I know it's not.
Because we're talking
It's
about
extra.
some budget items. So let's go back to the sheet that you made.
Okay.
On the second page, at the bottom, where it says general fund, 100-general fund,
Is this your page or the
you
city
have
page?
liability insurance. Our categories are liability insurance, health insurance, technology, and office supply, and point of sale, POS. So the 3 items that you have there really don't have any room to be cut. Health insurance, we talked about, that is because Jennifer didn't ever participate in city health insurance, so we had to, the reason that we increased it was to add what will be required for health insurance for a full-time person to replace her. So the $10,000 that you were looking for, I'm sorry, reduced to $10,000 to save $7,638. That's not viable to call a savings, okay? Technology for $10,000, the items that fall into that under general actually total, and we have a $20,000 working budget, it actually totals $20,500. So for us to cut that by 50% isn't realistic on this line item. So just letting you know on that. Office supplies, I cannot figure out a way that we could run this office on $2,500 a year because of cost of all the things. The copier, the copy paper, the ink, the paper that we use, the binders and all the things. It's the last line item on that same page.
Right, on that, the copy and printing would go in the next bucket, right? So you're saying?
Probably. I mean, so this is a summary page that you brought, so I don't have all of the items, but we were adding up things that belonged in there. But you have some that work on this next page.
Okay.
Payroll, you mentioned about cutting payroll by $59,000. The payroll that we have allocated, or that we're working with for current is $209,000. That covers exactly what we're doing right now, including Julie as a part-time. There's not room to cut that by $60,000 or $59,000 and continue to operate, knowing that everybody on council has already agreed that we want to continue to have those positions and not cut or defund that. Because we're going to pay what we're paying now probably or more, just our normal salaries. Same thing with payroll tax, that's not optional, we don't get to choose how much that is.
The reduction of the 59,000 would have brought it down that 16, that's the only reason.
Yeah, I know that that's related, but those three things, the retirement and TMRS, same thing. So that was a big chunk of projected savings that I know that you were bringing to the table. I appreciate you working on that, but that particular area is already pretty tight. And knowing that we're going to be spending a little extra now to have some interim folks, we really don't have room for those particular items. When you go down to consulting, I know that your chart still had the error that we made when we created the preliminary budget for
Because
the
we don't need the
workshop.
$200,000 in it anymore.
Well, it was $245,000, so that second column should have said $45,000, not $4,500. And we corrected that at the meeting, but it wasn't in the copy that you were using yet. So it should still say $45,000 in consulting in the new.
I'm listening, sorry.
That's okay, but you're right, we moved the $200,000 out of that line, and it was gonna go to those. So your proposal just had the wrong number still in it because we had the wrong number the previous time when we gave it to you.
But I
Just saying.
didn't make that as a mistake. I left it
No.
at the 4,500 because
But it wasn't supposed to be
we paid for the
4,500.
consulting last year.
Right, 200, well, we'll be paying for it out of some of that $600,000 that you're thinking was free, was available.
No, it's not free. I get that,
I
yeah.
shouldn't use the word free. Available.
That's free.
Yeah, so that $200,000 will have to be paid each year, or over the next 12 months, 10 months, whatever it is. It's line 100-10-5258. Okay. You see where we had the mistake on column 2 instead of 4,500, that was 45,000. Subscriptions, at $10,000, I have it in a different deck, but that is not something we can just cut to $1,500 because it's all the things that we have to pay for that run Nixle and
Okay, well then, why
And then
not
other
the
things.
current year do we only have $250 budgeted for it? Or actual, I'm sorry, subscriptions and professional memberships, you have $250.
this is that same line item, 5263.
This is the numbers that I was working off of to come up with the numbers that I was like, okay, well, we only have $250 and we haven't spent it yet,
You didn't
so.
use the pink sheets?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
We just got those at the last meeting.
No, we got the orange ones at the last meeting. I use these. That's why I was like, uh-oh,
Okay.
this might be bad.
I'm just saying, we went through it to make sure, okay, maybe Courtney's right. Is there $10,000 here? That line, no. The next item down, contracts,
Wait, let's.
Sure.
Let's go back to subscriptions. We don't know what those are.
okay.
So
Well,
it just
when we
says-
get to the deck in a second, let me grab it for you.
Well, Jennifer went over that in great detail last time.
I know what's faster. Hold on. Okay, and subscriptions. Adobe, that's per device. Dropbox, Google, Microsoft, Landglide, Apple apps. We will make sure they roll up.
I was gonna say, I thought those were listed in technology before, but.
The purchase is in technology, the ongoing maintenance or
maintenance, yeah, I
the
got you.
contracts are in subscriptions.
So I can tell you what I did there, Lori, just so you're not digging through your ultimate papers. So right here, on this particular sheet that I used, you have your professional memberships and your subscription dues at, like I said, $250 in the line. And I'm sure it changed from last year to whatever y'all budgeted at the very beginning. But on here, I did not change professional memberships, and I lowered the subscriptions because it was like a dual bucket. See how it's in both?
I don't think it's.
It's 5260 on this one, it's the same line, same little bucket. And again, there's only $250 on the professional memberships. I left 5 and then lowered the subscriptions to 1,500. So there's still $6,500 in there, it's just not, Jesus, $15,000 in prescriptions, or subscriptions, excuse me.
Yeah, we went through this 12 times the other day to make sure.
That was where,
Software licenses, that's in technology. Easy Task, Huge, and Code. Granicus, Microsoft, that's in technology under general.
yeah, the I went off, like I said, I went off of this page and I saw the $250, and I thought, wait a minute. So the dues and subscriptions being both line items for that, I left it, instead of $15,000, it's basically $6,500, so, I mean, that should be doable, geez. I would think, that's a lot of subscription.
Yeah, it's not like magazine subscriptions at home, though.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's, why am I not showing it on the front? Professional membership?
Yeah,
What
the
you're talking
professional
about? No.
memberships is on the same line item as
Yeah,
this.
so we already proposed cutting professional memberships to $2,500. That was in the one that I don't think we didn't get to go through just the other day. So we agreed that professional memberships could be
So I
cut to
actually gave you more money
$2,500.
than that, because the professional memberships is still at
And
5
then
on
this
this.
is 5263, 5263 right here at 10,000.
That's that, but up
That
here,
could be 5,000, but it can't be.
but your professional
So,
membership, sorry.
I mean, you're bridging over more than one version
Yeah,
here,
sorry.
so that's okay, I'm just
I was
saying.
using the actual-
There is money in those two things. Contracts, we said, sure, $2,400. Miscellaneous, which is under administration also. We had $7,500 in there. That's something that could be used if council wants to do that.
Yeah, I
You know,
think we need to-
reallocated.
If we don't know what something should be allocated for, then I don't
That's why
think
I'm
we
telling you
should.
now.
Yeah, just, I think we ought to do it away with all of the miscellaneous categories.
We can if you want to.
Are you
Miscellaneous,
saying to move them somewhere else, or
No, if you,
so just scratch off miscellaneous?
well, why? If you can't categorize something, we should be
So,
able
for
to
example, in public
categorize
safety-
every single thing.
I'll give you an example. In public safety, we have $1,000 in miscellaneous. Everything else is allocated either technology, a child safety fee, fire protection, that's a one-time $200 fee a year. Emergency management gets $2,500 in public safety. I mean, if you want to take that $1,000 out, I highlighted it, that if you want to get rid of it, you can, but it's not, we're not sandbagging thousands and thousands and
So what I
thousands of dollars in miscellaneous. It's just one of those things where when you build a budget at home or anywhere, there's going to be something that comes in that's not expected. That's what the miscellaneous is for. If we have a history of something coming in that applies there, then we put more money in that one or made that proportion higher. But if you guys want to take out miscellaneous, I definitely tag that one as something that could be addressed. I also, in public safety, your capital improvement, where we had $5,000
So I had a
for
question
that.
about that, and I apologize because we didn't get a chance to actually talk about this last time, but the capital improvement and then equipment. Why are those categories, what is that? What's capital improvement as far as public safety is concerned? Because we've got it in facilities, we've got it in public safety, we've got it in the general fund, we've got it in the EDCs, we've got it all over the place. I was just kind of curious,
Right.
like, what are we building?
So that each group or each category has its own budget items and
I get
it's
that.
separated more, and it's not just a big old slush fund where you can't identify where money is
But
going.
that's,
If you, it's in capital improvement in public safety, there's not a specific project that is mapped for that today that I'm aware of. It could be part of the child safety program. It could be, you know, things come in all the time that are discussed and not everything can be acted on. So if you,
that was why I made that change. 'Cause
yeah, I
did
would leave it in
mention-
equipment myself.
Paying
because-
$5,000 for plastic
Right.
cones to go
No,
outside.
county's been pretty nice to give us that for free, but, you know, I tag capital improvement from your list as something that could, and we changed it in the orange version.
Right.
So one
And
quick
miscellaneous.
question- One quick question, Lori. The fiscal year here, is it January to January? The expenditure year? September.
September 30th.
September 30th, September 30th. So what you're looking at for the $300-something thousand already paid out, is that from September last year or just for January 1?
I'm afraid I'm lost. What, $300,000?
The year-to-date budget versus actual is for the fiscal year, not the
It's for
calendar.
this year. to
Okay,
be spent
so
this year.
for payroll is $250,000. There's no way
When
we're
you
going to
combine
spend-
payroll, it's almost $500,000. When you
No.
combine all the taxes and the insurance and the everything that would cost us,
No.
it's
No,
almost, it's
it's
close to
not.
$400,000.
It's budgeted at $250,016.
But then you have to add the
2023.
taxes, and
No.
you have to
No.
add the
They
health
already-
insurance.
That's all of it. That's all their payroll. That's the taxes, that's their insurance, that's their pension, that's their 401K, that's all of it. They didn't make over $100,000 a year apiece. I don't know where you guys are getting that.
I didn't say that, number
Well,
one.
you
Number
just
two.
insinuated that, so you haven't done your homework. That is all
No, I have, I assure
salary.
you. The budget that she gave us, it was $200,009 just for payroll, like just the check.
That is payroll.
Then you have to pay taxes on that payroll to the government, that's another
That is
$50,000.
payroll.
That's a line item right here.
That's
In
not
the
for
general
payroll
fund, we're gonna
tax.
back up. There's human resources funds, there's retirement MRS funds, payroll tax expense and payroll, and mileage reimbursement that was all in here.
Yeah.
So it all totals to almost $400,000.
It's $276,000. It's not 400, but it is $276,000. Okay, let's keep on track, if we can.
Okay, that's
You
what I was on
proposed,
page one. Oh, there we go.
so
sorry.
we're still on public safety.
Got it.
You proposed cutting flock. I think council discussed it last time to not cut flock at this point, because that helps us. It's up to y'all. We're not paying anything yet, but you would budget $14,000 for,
An invoice, we would have to pay.
yeah. It's an annual, it'll be an annual fee that'll go live once the cameras go live. I think council was in agreement to keep flock. previously, so that's changed. Y'all will
I
have
took
to-
it out of the budget because we're not paying them currently. And then didn't they pick up one of the cameras anyway?
They picked up one of the free cameras because the pole.
My husband hit it. Just tell the truth. I ran it with the
So we just had to pick it up. It was one of the free ones. We're not paying for it anymore. But
We
this
tried.
is where,
There's a chasing kite.
Almost doubled it.
this is where TxDOT changed a portion of the permitting process. We've reapplied, so we're really, it could be any time that we'll go live with the contracted program. The cameras and the systems go live, so then we're in network with all of Portland County. Wherever they have their
I do have a statement. Do y'all understand the purpose of a budget?
Very clearly, yes, ma'am.
I'm not so sure, because you're saying to remove flock, even though that 14,000 can pop up in 3 months.
But
And we can just add it back. That's not how budget works.
I
You
didn't
plan for
say any
it.
of those things.
That is exactly what you just said. I took it out because we're not paying for it.
We're not paying for it.
At the
Jennifer-
moment, we are
Jennifer
not,
had-
but it can pop up at any time, so we have to be prepared for
I
it.
understand that. Jennifer at the last meeting is the one who's clearly stated the ball has been dropped. She can't even get a return phone call. So why are we
Okay,
bothering
that's
to budget
not
for
the case.
something that's not happening?
I don't think
That's not the case right now, and like I said, they have reapplied with TxDOT under their new rules about 45 days ago. And that's why I think that it's this close, finally coming to fruition on that. It's taken a long time. That's what she was talking about, dropping the ball. Is they didn't let us know they had never done a city that didn't have their own police department. So I didn't take flock out of the proposed budget. I know that you were proposing that. Council sounded like you were gonna keep it in, so right now it's in. When you go down to facilities, so I took everything out of miscellaneous that we just talked about. Under facilities, you were proposing cutting the internet from $6,700 to $5,000. Unfortunately, that's fiber, and there's no negotiation of the price. We made the best deal we possibly could to now, but that $6,700 is what it's actually costing us.
I went off of your
Plus our-
numbers on that, by the way. On the numbers, the 1 month of May that you had given us of the bills, that's how I came up with the $6,700, because I think on this budget, it was way below that. I was like, ooh, we don't have enough money in that bucket. So I went off of that actual number from the month, that 1 month of May, just as what we paid for, that was coded in that particular line. So that's where that number came from. Just saying.
Madam Mayor, I noticed that you allowed someone from the audience to speak, and I apologize, I came in late. So is this a meeting where audience members can talk or ask questions? Or is this a meeting that really is a work study of the council only?
It's a workshop of the council. This is our 4th meeting, so we're going to try to hammer out the details and leave today with consensus of what our tax rate is going to be in our budget. I have allowed questions. There's public comment that happened at the beginning, as long as we can keep from getting out of hand and becoming a back and forth, because
Okay.
council needs to really do the work of
All right, so this is the
budget.
first time I saw your vision elements, and I don't know that you're even considering the first two. First one
Okay,
says.
but we're
enable-
not doing our
growth.
comprehensive plan or anything
I
right
understand,
now.
But this is what everybody sees. And everybody in this council who was elected sees this. And what you're trying to do is enable growth and revitalization and enhance communication. Just keep that in mind while you're going through the budget.
Thank you. Good point. Okay, I forgot what our category is. Facilities, we talked about the internet, AT&T. Building improvements. We had, I'm sorry, we lost our headers. Our 2024 working, we cut that to 9,500 on your sheet, which I know that probably that's where you got that. And you took it to 0.
Because it's in capital improvement already. So that's another capital improvement versus equipment
I
type
put
question.
the question mark about that because that is where you would spend the money to buy that new air conditioner that we're thinking is coming our way this year.
So is that not considered capital improvement?
It would be.
That was my question earlier.
Yeah, it's under.
Because you've got it in maintenance, you got maintenance and repair. We have maintenance and repair generator, I'm assuming, or general, one of the two. and then you have maintenance and repair flood, and then we have equipment replacement, and we have building improvement and equipment. So I was like, good God, they're everywhere.
Yep.
Equipment in every one of the buckets.
Well, that was the only reason I removed it on that one.
Yeah, well, that money really right there is what we talked about with the air conditioner that's, we're saying a prayer over it, but it's probably this year.
Why wouldn't that
You had
be
miscellaneous there also. We also noted that.
the equipment replacement? Under the facilities. The air AC.
There's 4 different categories you can take
Yeah,
it to.
there's an awful lot on maintenance and repair, I agree.
You remember when Jennifer was talking about a capital improvement versus a project versus like a building improvement? So a building improvement could be something that's permanent and has a longer life. That's where that comes in. I noted your public works $1,000, I mean the miscellaneous in that same category, if you want to take those to zero for $1,000. Engineering, in public works, the next section, in engineering.
Wait, can we stay in facilities? I think Courtney had a good point. There's an awful lot. There's capital improvement, 9,500. Then there's maintenance and repair, 3,500. Maintenance and repair generator, I understand that's, if that's generator.
No, just general.
Is it
General
general?
maintenance and repair.
Okay.
I mean, if I have to call the septic guy out here, or the electric box goes on the pump or something like that, that's what maintenance and repair.
Yeah, but there's a maintenance and repair,
She's still
and a
talking
maintenance and
about
repair general, and a maintenance and repair flood, and an equipment replacement, and building improvement, and equipment. I don't
Okay, what do you want to
understand all
cut?
these.
So if I added all of the, so I can help you understand that. The reason I removed the 9,500 is because if you add those that you're talking about, capital improvement, the capital improvement maintenance, blah, 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 ones we just went through, that's $22,000 worth
That air
of
conditioner
available
is
money
15.
to.
Yeah, 15 to
Minimum.
17.
Minimum.
Right, absolutely, but that's still $22,000, so we got plenty of money in there.
An air conditioner is a minimum of $15,000 for you.
That's without using,
And that would be a capital.
that's without having the 9,500 in building improvement. Because I figured that would be maintenance and or equipment. There's a reason I took out building.
Right, it could also be replacing these ceiling tiles that are molded. It could be changing light fixtures, although we were able to do that with a grant recently. It could be carpet that needs to be replaced because it's been flooded so many times before we got the new roof.
Again, I'm
So
just
the
explaining
different
so that you understand,
categories
because there's
are-
22,000 in the other buckets.
It's customary in the city, Courtney, for your city budgets, to have the different, so you know where you're spending that money.
Right. I got it.
On the building improvements, when we make an addition to the building, that's under a grant, correct?
Right. That's under ARPA money in a grant.
Maybe the question here would be is can we maybe consolidate those things so there aren't so many line items?
We
I think
can.
it might be confusing some.
It's possible to do that.
I don't think you
I mean,
can.
making
There's
it-
certain items that, according to accounting practices, have to be like the capital improvement, because they have to be depreciated.
Oh, and that I understand,
Yeah.
but I mean, like Faith just said, we have a maintenance and repair, and we have a maintenance and repair general. Can we consolidate those two into one?
Lose visibility.
And I don't know the answer, I'm not an accountant.
Right.
If the maintenance and repair increases the life of the item, then you have to capitalize that, and you have a new depreciation. If it's in the general maintenance and repair, you don't have it. It's just a repair right off, right? Some of them,
Yeah, so we certainly can ask for categories if we want them. But in general, these categories come from accounting practices, and that's why we have the company, Granicus, to help us do that and make sure that's why we're using fund accounting. Y'all know that I am not an accountant, so this is not my expertise of the buckets and the rules. but you're hearing other folks that know about that say exactly what's true. So if you want to get rid of a category, or if you want to consolidate a category, I'm happy to ask about those things. But we don't want to lose the granularity. I know this is annoying because it's a bazillion lines of a budget, but then you or anybody could go in and see exactly what we're spending on exactly everything, which is actually what y'all have all asked for leading up to in this last year. Like, where's my money going? Where are you spending it all? This is how everybody could tell exactly what it went to. So it's a little tedious, but it's a really good system to make everything really transparent.
If we could see budget versus actual, it would help.
Well, we're providing that once a month. So the last one is from July, I believe. So next week, you'll have budget versus actual again.
One that I used.
Mhm.
Okay, we're almost there.
So we're in home stretch.
Oh my God, where we go?
Plant, Public Works. It's the next category down. You had, you were pulling $5,000 out of engineering with the projects we have going on, and knowing that we're going to be starting zoning, I really think that we're going to be short-sighted if we try and pull $5,000 out of that particular category.
But we can't start zoning until we get done with the comprehensive plan, that's another year.
By
Well,
left.
it's 9 months?
Yeah, 8 or 9 months.
9 months left, or 8 months maybe. And I know that you heard her saying yesterday that there are a lot of things that we can impact in our ETJ without zoning. And so we'll be leaning on our engineering to help us identify those and be able to work with those as soon as they can give us more information about what they are without waiting for the plan to be finished. And then we don't have to wait for zoning to be complete.
We
But-
do have a planning and zoning here, on the, down here.
Right, so there'll be costs for planning and zoning that is separate from engineering. And we would want that to be separate so you can see where the money was spent.
So while I know we're on certain lines, but the reasoning behind me leaving so much money in the attorney's fees is because of a lot of those fees too. So in mid-year, if we needed to move some of that monies from, I left the 15, but I didn't only leave the 15, obviously. I didn't only leave the 15 additional for those contractual things when zoning comes in. I left it at 75.
I don't know where you're talking about.
I'm sorry, 60 on the attorney's fees. So that if mid-year we need to move it from that bucket into this bucket to help with
Well, we're
those
on
engineering
pace to
fees.
spend $75,000 in attorney's fees. So I think we agreed amongst ourselves, we're gonna try to do better about that, right? So you're talking about
It was just a fluid bucket change.
General
That's the
funds,
reason
under
Public
administration.
Works, under Public Works, the reason I changed the $5,000 on the engineering fees is because it is still available in this bucket where we can utilize it mid-year and take it from that one and put it in the other one.
I'm really sorry, Courtney, I don't see engineering that you made a reduction in administration or left it. What are you
I
talking
just left it in a different bucket, in the attorney's fees bucket.
about? Okay, so engineering and attorneys are not,
I understand, but we
The
can
same
go through
expense?
like mid-year if we need more on the engineering.
but the thing is, that's what Kelly was saying about a municipal budget, that you don't plan right now to be making a change in the mid-year because you would like your budget number to be lower. You still have to account for it if you know that bill is going to be coming.
And it's accounted for. Yeah,
Okay, but legal is not the same as engineering.
Okay.
They both will be required on the projects.
Understood. Jennifer and herself, just said at the last meeting that we could just change, we could move it from that bucket to the other bucket. That was.
Well, we
that
were
was the reason I
talking
did that.
about reducing legal because we're all getting in sync, hopefully a little more. We're going to improve communication. We're going to be able to get our team going in the same direction and be able to reduce our legal liability. So we were looking for places to cut in the budget because council wanted to target how could we put more money in other categories or in roads. So if we can cut legal, when we can reduce legal by our behavior. So if we are agreeing that we're all going to try to do that, then let's cut that and put it in roads. But I don't think we want to take stuff out of planning and zoning coming up or engineering because it's really different. You can't affect that with your behavior in the same way that we can on our legal right now, if that makes sense. So Okay, miscellaneous on that same category.
I
We had
moved it to major
$2,500 in there.
I moved it to major roads.
Okay, well,
You didn't, you only
I'm
had
just
2,500.
going through your items and saying, this one, I agree, this one, we really can't
Well,
touch.
I took
So-
that miscellaneous and I
Mhm.
moved it up here. Because you only had 2,500 budgeted, so I actually added to the major road category, because you only had
I see what you
5,000,
mean.
or
Okay.
2,500 in. So I
So-
didn't delete it totally,
Mhm.
I just moved it up into a different category.
So my point of going through this is that we identified 19,400, let's call it, maybe there's 22, because we're kind of making some notes amongst yourselves, that if we shade categories, we could put the money somewhere else. That's fine. We still need now everybody to be candid with each other about where are we on what that rate is and what is our higher level philosophy going to be. Are we going to cut this budget and take all road out so that we can afford to continue to operate as like we used to with a 22 cent? Are we going to choose a number that's higher than that so we can continue to do projects like the road work and potentially keep our reserves rolling? What's
So
the
if you make the
philosophy?
changes that you're suggesting, or maybe the pages that you've got up there ahead of time, what is the rate that you're suggesting? Because I sent you this thinking you were going to utilize it, not tear it apart, but in the same aspect, I don't understand what you're saying. Are you saying you want to go with the 19.4 cut? Because that would tell you automatically that this is 27.5 cents. And that's our rate, if we use this one.
Okay, but you propose more than $19,000 out of this.
So you're
That
saying
doesn't really equal
of the
27.
19, or of the changes that you are in agreement with 19, right?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Let's say, and this was based on $309,000 in revenue. It still can work with the certified role. But we can't fund running the office, so less $20,000 of our, if you just take our budget, less the $200,000 that we did for the comprehensive plan, and less, let's say $20,000 that we just walked through. For this particular segment of our income, we can't run the city in the way that we've been running and doing all the projects we have open right now and do road work. So for that $20,000, if you cut back to the 27 cents or 25, we're losing that 200 and change, that going from 22 to 44 last year generated. So if we go back to that, how are we going to do some roads? There's not grant money available for that. There's
There's
there's one
1.2
project.
million.
There is one project,
Well,
right, but there's $4.5 million worth of work. It
Well,
could
if
be.
we were to do
Your
this
max-
entire thing, certainly.
Right.
But, okay, so at the end of the fiscal year, what is our anticipated, if we have estimated $682,000 and whatnot in remaining balanced budget for this year, what's happening to that money? After all of the bills are paid for this year, what is the
Well-
city's plan to do with that money?
For one thing, we can estimate, but we're in hurricane season right now, so we won't know until we get through hurricane season if the big chunk of money that's budgeted for emergency response is going to be used or not.
Also,
So that one thing.
Also, ma'am, you're not going to really know that, the actual until the audit has been, your audits have been completed as well.
Right,
For
because
the audit for the fiscal year.
So at the last meeting, Jennifer was very clear, and I remember her saying all of this to the council, that the actuals have not all been entered into the system yet. If you sit down and you do the math, just yourself, Courtney, almost $300,000 of that is salaries. So if you're thinking that we've only spent $340,000 this year, that's because the actuals are not in the system yet. And I think
It's not
Jennifer was
based on
actually
that.
working on.
It's not based on that, it's based on your continued revenue for the months. So the last 2 months of the year, we should still
I'm not
have
talking
this
about,
depleted.
I'm not talking about revenue. I'm talking about actuals versus what was budgeted last year. That's how you operate.
Right, that's what this is. That's what I just
But
showed
if
you.
I'm doing my
Those
math
numbers aren't,
correctly,
those numbers aren't final. Jennifer was very clear
I
about that.
understand, it's as of July 31st,
No.
so we still have 2 more months.
No, it's not as
She
of
said
July
she hadn't put
31st.
everything in.
Everything is not in there. She was very clear about
Here's the
those
thing,
things not
expenditures.
being in there.
Real life
Billing,
date right here
people
was
bill you
725.
90 days out.
So it says
What's not even that?
725.
It's even just actuals that have actually happened that have not been entered into the system.
We still have that to pay out this year,
Yeah.
this fiscal year.
And you'll have another.
$460,000.
And you still have a bunch.
So that gives you 100 and something left?
No.
So as of today, we have $531,000 of budget remaining.
How much? I'm sorry?
539. We have 430.
460.
460 left to pay out.
So in a
And then we're
month.
using around
$79,000.
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Yeah,
whoa.
one
In a
month.
month, we spent $150,000 on what? Is it Jennifer and already them been paid out, or are we double adding?
We're not double adding anything. That was kind of when I was going through this at the beginning.
Yeah. So we had 682 at 725,
Courtney, there's
and you're
not
at
682
539.
left.
Let her talk.
It's $143,000.
Zip it yourself,
Is
sir.
that part of the comp
I
plan,
didn't
or
hear what you said the $143,000 is.
the difference between the number that you just read and the number that we received on 725? So there was $682,606.34, and then you just read off 539, right?
Yeah, 539 is budget remaining.
So that's 143,000. Did we pay some of the comp plan? What did we do in the last?
No, things have been entered into the system.
Yeah, things have been entered, and so let's say, I'll give you an example. Current month, actual, and this is as of 8/7, yesterday.
That's only a couple of days.
Payroll, $131,000.
So that's your
That includes
severance?
the severance payout.
Okay, so that's not part of the 430 that you were adding, I'm asking?
No, it is.
Okay, so
But
we
I
don't
don't
have-
put 100,000 in there for it, so.
Right, we haven't, and I don't know, I'm not looking at what she paid out for the remainder of July, because there was another week of July there. I'm giving you current month, what we've written so far in the first 7 days of the month. Anyway, we don't need to go through every invoice that's been paid since our last meeting. What I'm saying is, I don't understand where your $600,000 number comes from. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but the money, just because it hadn't been spent yet at the time, you can't just say it's left and assume that $80,000 is all we're gonna pay out. It has to be more in keeping with what is coming in, what we know is coming, like, for example, knowing that we had the severance coming when you had that 800 number. But we also hadn't nailed it completely down yet. We certainly hadn't paid it out yet. So,
Or another question, we didn't take into account having a interim employee, having to pay for housing and all that as well, correct? So we need to add that in here, correct?
yes.
Okay.
So the salary and the additional 30% that we pay directly to, I'm gonna call him the recruiter, would cover the similar expense of, in this case, let's say Jennifer. If Jennifer had insurance, it would be the same, or close to the same outlay.
Correct.
While we have an 80, or anybody on interim. The extra expenses are mileage, expenses, the out-of-pocket expenses, and housing. So that will be extra. Housing can be up to, right now, the rate is about $3,400 a month for housing. I don't know what the mileage is going to be. In Nate's case, I was super lucky to get a rental house here in Simonton, and it is a fraction of that $3,400, so thank you. That's why we made that choice. We borrowed furniture and done all the things and spent, I think, $1,000 to get that ready to go. So it'll be a big savings to us. But when we get a next person, if they have to come and there's not a sweet deal like that available, to your point, Kelly, we'll have that probably, I would estimate $4,000 a month. while we have that interim personnel. That'd be in addition to the payroll numbers that we're accustomed to. So I need, you all need to talk to each other. I would love to hear from you what your philosophy needs to be about what are we going to do to be able to do some projects and continue to operate the city with our growth plan in mind.
Okay, you and I met with Jennifer Friday for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And we talked about a tax rate, and she said, the best I can see on this budget, if I make X changes, is 25 cents tax rate. I said, fine. So I assumed she was going to put something together that apparently...
She did.
She did?
It has no road money in it. So cut back on the rest of the budget, but it has no road money in it at 25 cents.
Okay, another question. You mentioned a while ago that our typical reserve for a city this size is $1 million. And we have $3 million in the bank, if I understand it correctly.
So
Okay, well, then tell me.
the recommended minimum for your balance sheet or your expenses is half a year, which would be $500,000. And if we said our very minimum for emergency was $1 million, so that's 1.5 at the bare minimum recommendation in our situation. We have 3. We also are the one-off city of the county. Every time I go to a meeting, there's something that's different about Simonton, and that's, we don't have any debt, great. We don't have much commercial, bad. We have lots of rooftops, and impact anytime we have a crisis is to about 80% of our population. That's bad. So having more than 1.5 million is highly recommended, but it's up to y'all to decide. The big factor is if we decide to spend from reserves, how do we replenish over time? Are you going to be willing, like, here's the thing, are you going to be willing in 2 years or before your next term to vote to raise the tax rate again if we need it? That's going to be painful.
So here's the thing, that's kind of my point to bringing up what I brought up before. In 2018, you said you came in here, and we only had $500,000 in the bank, and you knelt and the whole 9 yards, and you were still at 22. We only went up 2 cents to 24 in 2019. It went down 3 cents in 21 to 21. It went up to 22, and then this last year, it blew out the doors, right? But that whole time, Jennifer and Erica and yourself were able to build our reserves, and I'm not saying spend the reserves for what we have this fiscal year, right? Which is what I estimated off of your numbers.
Right.
But
so
what
we
I am
built the
saying
reserves
is
strictly out of investing. So we had,
but
just built it and
even
reinvested it
at
and
a
keep building it.
27.5-cent rate, or, I mean, I think that's kind of a happy medium between the 39 or 37 that was suggested and we're still above where we were. And I mean, I just remember listening to a whole lot of people, and myself included, screaming, can we just do this halfway? It's still, 7 cents higher than where we were originally in 2022.
It's going to be worse.
And we raised all the extra money last year to add to it. So.
Did you say we used it, Burns? I just didn't hear you. We used all the extra money?
We made all this money last year.
We made all
they
that.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we made the extra, we made the extra money and we used it
And I don't know what
for
the
project.
number is, because y'all keep talking about how much we're gonna spend this year. So question I would have is how much are we gonna have left out of the money that you raised last year? I don't know the answer, because I've heard all kinds of numbers.
So how much money did y'all get from raising the taxes to 44 cents? Wasn't it roughly a little over 200,000?
A little over 300.
So they spent that alone in the comprehensive
Yeah, that was the
plan.
goal, was to fund the comprehensive plan.
So that's gone.
So that 22 cent,
290,000, because I calculated it.
290,000 what?
More than what would have been if we'd have kept the same tax rate that we had the year before.
I would think that what they get from the city is probably more accurate than what you're calculating, but okay, but even still, 200,000 was spent immediately. So that still only leaves you, by your calculation,
Yeah.
$90,000 to run the city.
I don't know what's left, because nobody's
Just
said.
based on your math,
Yeah.
there's $90,000 left.
Yeah, okay, we used $200,000. That doesn't mean you had to more than double the taxes. I don't really,
Okay, so
you had money in the bank, we could have
You're absolutely
back to
right.
reserves.
So do you,
And the argument is how much reserves we need.
all right, when you use your reserves, you have to replenish them. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Lori was getting at it. Are y'all willing to up the tax rate to 88 cents to compensate for the reserves you just
You
used?
can't do it, it's illegal. The highest we could go is 64 as a small taxing unit.
She was just making a point.
I'm making the
Are
point.
you gonna be-
If you were upset at 44, you're gonna be really upset at 64, is the whole point.
I understand, there's a whole lot of people in here in this room.
I was
A lot of
one
people
of
in
them.
this
I was here,
room.
but I
all
wasn't
screaming
mad about it.
property taxes.
I'm happy to give my city $200
The
more.
11-year average was 25.4. For 11 years, we've been able to maintain, get these projects done, all that good stuff, for 25. I suggested 27 and a half.
So your blinders are on right here? You're not seeing what's coming? And we need to prepare for it?
And you said it over in
I'm saying,
That's what I'm saying.
11-year average of all this growth and hurricanes and emergency spending and all this other stuff that you would come out of, we are way ahead. I'm not saying depleted by any means. I used the wrong word. I apologize for that already. However, this is something tangible. Now, where we agree whether or not it goes in this bucket or that bucket, we can come back to, because I don't want to sit here all night long and discuss that. But we got to come up with a number that is where we're going to go. I can tell you, I don't want to be at 39 cents.
Can I ask
Honestly, I think that's too high.
just an easy question, I think? Burns, if your numbers are correct, and that the city got $290,000 extra last year from the 22 to 44, let's just use your numbers for instance, and we used a little over $200,000 to go to the comprehensive plan. It left a little bit money if all of these numbers are correct. So if we keep it at 44 cents this year, let's just say that then we would get, that we would get another $290,000. But if we go down, then if we said, okay, we're gonna take that $290,000 and we're gonna put it into roads or put it wherever you choose to put it. But the more you go down, that $290 gets gone, chipped away, chipped away, chipped away, chipped away is what they were saying. So if we go down to 22, 25%, all that extra $290 is gone.
Your buffet is gone.
So you don't.
That's inaccurate, though. That's an inaccurate example, only because
But it's not.
It's
Fort
an
Bend County,
example.
Fort Bend County, we can't stay the same. So the highest we can go is actually 37 cents
I'm not
because
saying.
Fort Bend County
you're
raised our
talking
pay
right,
so
but
much.
You're bringing to the table, 20 was brought up last week, 22 was brought up, 25 was brought up. So what I'm saying is that at 44 rate where we're at now, just using easy numbers, like we would gain $290,000 like we did last year. If we go down.
Except we're not gonna do a comprehensive
Correct.
plan again.
Correct, so that's my point, is that,
coming up.
my point is,
Zoning.
we won't spend that $200,000 in comprehensive, right? So this year going forward, we would gain $290 instead of just the 90 because we haven't allocated that other $200,000 to go somewhere.
But you would put that $290 towards roads.
That's what I'm saying, is that if we go down, that extra $290 chips away, chips away, chips away, and then we're stuck with, we have no extra money coming in. So we can't put money on roads. We can't put money in other places unless we pull from reserves, which everybody isn't ideal. So my point is, I get it. I pay the higher taxes too, like I understand. But my point is, looking at it across the board, finding that middle ground, 44, it's the $290,000 that if we go by your numbers. So how much do you want to be able to cut back to where we don't have money to put on roads or put somewhere else?
Well, we're not gonna repair all the roads at one time. We
No.
haven't repaired roads
But it's
in
over
several
$4 million,
years.
right? Yeah.
We have a million plus, excuse me?
Go ahead.
We have a million plus grant that everybody keeps talking about, that's in the works to do
Correct,
roads.
correct.
Which you can do some of the roads with
Correct.
that.
But it's $4.5 million for
It's
all
for
of that.
drainage, a particular
Okay.
project of drainage and some
Yeah.
road on Wagon. Mhm.
So
My point is, every
Oh, you can
point we go down,
you can allocate money for roads, and if it has to come out of the, and you're laughing when I say 3 million, what's the number? I mean, that's what I've been told. So if that's incorrect, somebody tell me.
They say it's like
So if
$665,000.
we use $200,000 of that money, we're not, the way I look at it, we're not making ourselves where we can't handle stuff when it comes. And I'm the one that you mentioned that said we're about what if.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll tell all of y'all.
that wasn't a criticism, I didn't make it sound
I
like
don't run my
that.
life like that. I never have, and I'm not gonna start now.
but you have to think
I
about
mean,
the people of the city.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to agree to
You
disagree with that.
represent the whole city
Yeah,
sitting
you
there.
do, not just you.
Lori?
Excuse me?
There's a population of how many people here?
Oh, absolutely.
Lori, could I
840
contribute to some of this?
What is
thoughts?
That's where that, what we have in the bank, it says just 3 million and change, 3.2.
So to your point, if we take $200,000 out of our $3 million that we have, just using round numbers, you're right, we're not gonna stop operating, that's no problem. But then the next year, we're gonna do it again, and the next year, we're gonna do it again. That's what the question is about spending reserves or having a tax rate, even if it's somewhere in the middle, so that we're not back down to 20 cents, because we won't be able to continue to generate this rate of money probably in our investments because of the way the economy is changing and they're pulling back on some of those rates.
I just think we ought to stay in the 20s. One thing I don't understand is why we said we had 290,000 from last year to pay for the comprehensive plan, but yet it's budgeted in here another 200,000.
No, what we said was that's how much the city gained by raising it from 22 to 44.
I think we were saying that the comprehensive plan, again, I'm using round numbers right now, was gonna cost about $200,000. So we were in the new budget said, because after we talked to all of y'all, okay, we don't need that there anymore. Shall we put it in roads? Everybody said yes, so we just moved it from there, from 2023 into roads for 2024 for discussion and workshopping.
Well, I'd like to see, the city tighten its belt instead of having the citizens have to, because like you said, everything is going up, and I'm, with Burns and Courtney on this, that we need to bring the tax rate down. If we've got to tighten up whatever we got to tighten up, let's do it.
Lori, I was going to speak publicly, but I thought it was 6:30, can I have to say this? I don't want to get into details, that's up to y'all. I took a deep dive in this, I talked to several of you. I've watched the growth, I've worked with Katie, I watched them make mistakes. I worked with Fulcher, and they made a ton of mistakes with past leadership. And I don't want to see us shortchange ourselves. You guys, right now, the wave's already over Fulcher, and it's coming here. September 1st, the EPJ, they can opt out. This 300, 400 acres, they can say, we're out. If we don't start working on this now, we're going to sit here and have development like Fulcher that we don't want. So for a little bit of tax rate, for the money you're talking about, you're lowering it from last year, okay? The valuations go up, but if you cut yourself now, I've seen it, I've worked it. I've worked it a lot of years. I've been in her position, just not married. You're gonna hurt yourself. And next year, you're gonna be talking about this. 2018 is over. This is over. 2021 is over.
Yes.
So you're still heroes, you're gonna lower the tax rate. But I tell you what, next year, you're gonna have a tougher decision. Unfortunately, you all got land blasted. You just got elected, you got hit with all this. So, don't shortchange us. Please don't shortchange us. It's gotta be higher than that. Because the 20s, maybe it doesn't need to be 37, I don't know. That's up to you. You're the elected ones. I've done a lot of research on this. I've watched it. You're gonna hurt yourself. We're not going, $290,000 ain't gonna build much road, I can guarantee you.
Exactly.
It'd take me $50,000 just to paint my runway. So asphalt is expensive. Generators are expensive. Y'all, It's going to happen. Just be cautious right now. It's a big decision.
Yeah.
So I would go with the evaluation or somewhere close.
So how would
Because otherwise next year, you get to be the ones raising the taxes. It's going to happen. I see it. I've
Well
lived
spoken.
it. I was supposed to be lost in this. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
No,
So,
I can leave too now.
Madam Mayor?
He already spoke.
Go ahead.
So really just to kind of follow up on him and some of what Mr. Burns said. If you have someone managing the investments, a true cash manager, right? And they're providing the best return that we can get as a city on $3 million, right? That money that's just thrown out every year is basically the free money you made by investing.
Right.
Do something with that and never touch the $3 million. That's how we would do in our personal, right?
Exactly.
So we need to get creative on where the money can come from and whether, how much more we put in to get back. Eventually, wouldn't it be great if you had a tax rate of 10 cents and all the money was coming from investments?
Right.
Exactly.
That's a nice vision to
But
have,
you
by
don't
the
do
way.
it.
You're not gonna get there, but it's a good vision to have.
It sounds like capitalism.
It sounds like that.
I love
Do that, though,
capitalism.
because
Me
that's
too.
what it's meant to be. We are making money on the $3 million that's in
Yeah,
the
so-
bank, but we don't want to spend that.
Who? Y'all get to
They don't want to
decide.
spend that.
Y'all get to
I
decide.
just said possibility of spending it, and I was, gosh, you know, that's.
But I want to make one more comment. My road on Wrangler is terrible. It's been terrible for 15 years. No one's touched that road, but patched a little here or there. All of our roads, if you look at them now, are cracking from the heat. All right, you want to do something with roads, you're going to have to do something with
I
roads.
paid .44 for 5 more years if the roads in Simonton were improved.
Just think about those things,
150 more
because we're your neighbors,
to our city.
we're riding over those roads, and every time we look at that, we're gonna make a call to y'all. Why the hell am I running my tires through frickin' potholes for 20 years, 15 years, section 1 going down Wrangler Road? That's ridiculous. Sorry.
And people
Done.
buying these overinflated houses and they still have to ride on these roads. And that's what
And the
helped.
only other question is, why can't the county take over the roads?
Because we're a city.
Why don't you run some agreement with the county to take some of the roads? They can do that.
Actually, there is.
They do
The county's
There is?
They do, they've
They
been
have,
helping us.
there's an
So-
interlocal agreement that this city has signed with the county, that they will, do the, the labor on that, but the city provides the materials.
At least we're halfway.
Which I tell you what, looking at it from a perspective of someone who has been in a city that, had to do both the labor and the materials, I mean, that's
It's a good deal.
It's a really good deal,
Yeah.
really good discount. I mean, at least, you do pay county taxes, you feel like you're getting some benefit from, those county taxes, other than, constable, sheriff, and, all those other things. You get an added benefit, better, I should say.
Yeah, can I say something? Thank you. Being that I was one of the 3 votes that voted in the ad valorem tax, we were making it, without paying for roads, administratively at the time, and I believe today, ad valorem tax was going just to roads because we were making enough off of franchise taxes. Today, I think the revenue budget was over $900,000, am I correct?
Total.
So we're kind of beating this thing up about ad valorem when we have a lot of money coming in sales tax, the franchise tax, and so forth. It's not all about ad valorem. So the question is, of the nut, the over $900,000, budget versus actual, how much really got spent last year? And I don't think council even has that calculation to really say on a line item basis where they are. So they're just trying to make the best decision they can, and I encourage that. And I'm not going to talk about percentages, but I can say that my question really comes down to, if we collect $950, are we spending $950 or not? And I don't think we are. I think we're putting a lot of that in the
Depends
budget.
on the year.
course.
Depends on the items that come in.
And I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I passed out the page, if this helps you make a decision or not, I don't know. I passed out the page, Courtney's been referring to it, that has the 10-year history. And you can see, this would be the first year that we had a 26-cent or something tax rate. Yeah, this is from last year. So this is old, but I gave it to you just to get the history on the bottom.
simple square foot.
26 and up, 26 is not unprecedented, and like we were discussing, number one, the franchise fees have been legislatively reduced. So, I mean, you can see what the incomes are. I'm not saying that's a huge number, but it's impacted from the way we used to run things a little bit. Our revenue does total $992,000. The previous budget, which was the reason for the choice on the tax rate, was that the 44-cent rate would give us $499,000 was the estimate from ad valorem. So I know we're talking all about ad valorem. We've given you what the estimates are of the other income items. The appraisal coming in higher allowed us to capture a reduction to residents on cents per hundred anyway, which we knew would come. So that's 7 cents if you choose a 37% tax rate from 44 to 37. If you go back to, let's say 27, that's 17 cents. Really, you just have to decide where are you comfortable, knowing that whatever you decide on that, yes, there's belt tightening, which is kind of why we were going through Courtney's proposed items, was where we could tighten our belt. Some of these we couldn't, some we could. But once you decide what your number is it going to be 450,000? Is it going to be 300? Is it going to be 200? Like, what are you comfortable putting our income on the ad valorem line being? And knowing whatever you choose there is what will leave us whatever there is for roads.
What happens when they raise the homestead rate? What will that do to y'all?
That won't do anything this year.
It's gonna come out to vote on in November.
Tax.
I don't know the answer, Jeff.
If you raise your homestead, you're gonna lose a lot of your revenue.
Well, but in theory, they wouldn't be reduced, it might be locked. But, grandfathered, but I am certainly not the expert to answer that off the top of my head. We could certainly research it once we know what that ballot's gonna look like.
So I have a super quick statement. I know that Jennifer said that the tax roll value is about 20 million lower than she anticipated it to be. And somebody has called into the county to see if that was an error.
That's what we were talking about at the beginning.
Right, so
we think that it's an 18, we think that is an error. It's not an error. They are still under review board.
Right.
38 properties, it's $20 million worth. So we think 18 million will come back. That's their conversation with us, but we can't use that for calculation now because we don't know that, and it won't be complete in the budget cycle.
Right, so my question is, can the council vote for a rate that covers the budget along with the roads and all that stuff, and if that 18 million comes back in, the difference at 33, I'm just like throwing numbers out, is about 50 grand. So if they vote for the 37 and that number comes back in at that extra 20 million is...
So it would come in as an overage on our income versus the budget.
Right, so then so is the tax rate locked in for 2023 if you do that, or do you have an opportunity to lower it if that 20 million comes in? That's my question.
You can't lower it during the year.
You can't lower it during the year.
Just like you can't switch buckets.
Yeah, if it's kind of a catch-22, ma'am, in terms of that, because you have to advertise tax rate. And what happens is, whatever that rate is, wherever the council votes to adopt in the ordinance tax rate, then the tax bills go out. No matter how much the ARB backlog happens. It's not the most ideal situation. Probably the only good that'll come out of it when you have budget to actual in that fiscal is you'll see an increase. It'd be over 100%. It's like, well, I guess we're doing great. but, because of that 18 million. And it's not just Fort Bend County. I mean, you're going to see a lot more of this, I believe, in the coming years, just because people are getting, homeowners are getting more educated on the appeal process and the review process. So what's going to happen is that's going to create a big docket of ARB hearings. And there's only so much time that, can be dedicated to that, and from that. And you're going to see, I actually saw it in the county I worked in, Freestone County, which, doesn't have, quite the amount of properties that Fort Bend County has. But that percentage of reviews is just going to keep going up and up in years.
I think we were all hit pretty hard this year, and so we all fought. And unfortunately, it's taken the county a little bit longer to get through all of them. I would suspect that would continue to happen each year, that our home values go up. But really,
Yeah, so we have to work with the role that we have, since they are telling us they don't expect this to be resolved before budget season is over in September. So it would come in as a surplus. There's always an opportunity if we see that more is coming in than what we've budgeted and there's a project you want to do, you can always make a mid-year adjustment and say, while the road project's going on, we see that we're going to get another 10,000, 20,000, whatever the number is, can we add a few more miles to our road project? Council could always do that during the year if there's more money that comes in.
So did Jennifer provide you, sorry, let me cut you off. Did Jennifer provide you with any type of changes to this orange part? Or
Yes, I have a 27-cent version. I have a 25-cent version. And we could do any version in between there that we want. If you want to consider, so at 37 cents, you're already reducing by 7 cents. Y'all have to decide what, is all we want to consider is 27 cents? Do you want to look at splitting the difference? And perhaps then you've got some money to do some roads. Your withdrawal from reserves, if you decide to do that to make that block of money for roads bigger, could be less.
Which got
I mean, it's not an Excel formula.
It's sitting on very low. You said you have one for 27 cents, or are you using this?
I have another one. We're
Oh, you
all
just did a different-
drowning
okay.
in paper. I thought
Yeah,
we could
no
discuss it and see what we're thinking before we add more paper.
I don't know what I thought. You know what you thought?
I said what I thought.
So you said, I heard you say somewhere in the 20s.
Somewhere in the 20s.
You said 27.
Or 27 and a half, maybe not this one, right?
Right.
We'll move those buckets around. Yeah.
Right. And we'll make the budget match whatever you guys decide, or whatever the consensus is today. This is not the only time you get to approve this. So we'll tweak it, make sure it balances, it's in the right buckets. There'll be another
Can you send those
vote
to
on
us? The 25 and the 27, so we could look
she
at
can
those.
give them to you right
I
now.
can
We
give
have
them to you
pick a
right now,
number today, though.
but you have to
We
decide
pick a
today,
number so that they can
like,
publicly.
as a group, as a block,
Okay.
what is your consensus number gonna be?
25.
I came up from 20 to 25, and that was after talking to Jennifer, because she convinced me, so I'm there, that's where I'm gonna stay. Not that anybody cares, I campaign on lowering taxes. Somebody else must agree with me, I'm assuming. So, I'm not
Joe
going
also
back.
said you
on-
wanted-
But you are lowering taxes
I'm
going
not going
to,
back on what I said I would do if I was elected.
okay. Currently, our tax rate is at 0.44.
I know where it is.
So if you
I ran for
So if you
city
go to
council.
0.37, you're following through.
Yeah, 25 is my number.
So when people ask
Okay,
why
so
the roads
Courtney,
aren't
are you
getting done.
willing to consider anything between 27 and 37? I think that's, they're not asking me,
I
but
think
that's
we
what I'm
need to,
saying.
I think, for lack of better analogies, we just need to tighten some spending. There, we haven't seen a lot of that yet, so there, I mean, that being said, you've had a lot on your hands, so I get it. We haven't seen a lot of that yet, but the slim snapshot of what we did see as far as spending is concerned, just seems like it could be budgeted a little better, or maybe some better decisions made, some changes made. I mean, we have actual, I get it, we've got 2 internets, one goes down, we have a backup, but then we have like 4 hotspots, and we got 4 cell phones, and we got 4 laptops. It's just like, and a lot of that was put in last year's budget. So that's where I kind of just used my brain and thought, okay, well, if you tighten your belt a little bit better and you don't spend as much on 17,500 pieces of paper or whatever the case may be, then that's where we can see some of the savings. That's how I came to this. I think 27 and a half being 2 cents, like right at 2 cents over our 11-year average is kind of fair, and it still doesn't drop it all the way down to 18 or 19 or 20. And for the years past, I have to say, Burns said it so beautifully, and I don't know why it didn't come across my brain this way, but at the last meeting, he said, you know, we survived. We paid all of our bills. We still got all these projects done, and I get it, there are more coming. I'm not saying take it to 18 or 20. And Fort Bend County went up $20 million. So it's still, we're still gonna make money at 27 and a half.
We're still not.
It's just not.
I know, they don't have the same number.
They went up $20 million in our appraisal fees, or our values.
I'm not
So
willing to go
that
there
changes
personally,
this
but that's me.
whole little thing significantly.
Well, that's while we're
So,
on here.
You have
I
a
mean,
lot
we
of
went from
constituents right here.
99 or 94
And they have
to,
spoken.
I know.
They're not wanting you to go to 25 cents.
I understand that. And last year, there was a bunch of us here that didn't want you to go to 44.
I didn't make that call, so stop putting me in there.
Or excuse me, that didn't want the council.
And you were mad that they didn't listen to you. So we're just asking you to listen to us. Because we're scared of what's gonna happen in 2 or 3 years from now.
You're done.
When we don't have.
One more flood, y'all done.
understanding one thing, so you've been paying these
You don't
roads,
have that
you've been
right.
paying budgeted
You have
fees for these
800,
roads
over 800
since
people
I've
you're
moved here
responsible for
in
right now.
2019. We've
You
been
haven't
paying
seen the
same
roads the way
amount.
they were.
You
You
haven't seen the gravel we used to ride
haven't been out
on.
here long enough to see the
Hang on.
changes we have
Hang on
gone
one
through.
sec, I get it.
We are to the better now.
But we also
Yes.
haven't spent any of that collected tax dollars on roads since 2020.
Yeah, so
And the
nothing
number-
ever got done in this city.
I understand that, but the
Nothing.
money was still collected.
We finally saw, no, it's not that much.
Okay. I feel your passion about it.
So
Let's
to
don't get
hit,
into an
So
argument.
I gave
This gentleman's
$600 to my city this year by .44, and they rescued me from the floods, they paved roads, they put anything we come up here and ask, we have accessibility to them.
They'll bring that boat to your front
600
door.
a year, I went from 300 to 600 at .44, yes.
Jesus.
It's insane.
that just means your appraisal value
guys.
is about.
No, that's because I'm not a new build, I'm an old build.
The average.
New builds got hurt.
Look at.
That's what she said.
Okay, council needs to be able to talk to each other, you guys. We're gonna
We'll be quiet.
15%.
Or we'll get kicked
That's- From what she's shown, it puts it right at 30.
He started.
Would you be happy at 30? That would raise this. The proposed difference that she's talking about, the 156, that would get you to 30. So we could put your roads back in it at 30. Because of the mistake I didn't have in there. That's where that $200,000 or whatever slugged.
Yeah.
But at 30 cents, if you could put the $200,000 put back in your road.
It meets, that's where I'm comfortable with.
I mean, it doesn't, what we're trying to say, it doesn't keep you from, obviously, we still have to figure out the budgets and all that good stuff, but at 30 cents, we can still fund the roads, utilizing this when it's available. And you'd have
So the idea would be the ones that are in the grant
$80,000 over.
could be done plus some
Plus the
amount.
ones that are listed here. and then you utilize the remaining 78
I'll promise you,
funds on
we are
there.
gonna make sure we spend every penny.
And if we
But
raise-
don't worry about which roads they are.
If we
but-
have another 100, if we have another 200 in here for roads, then you have basically only 112, so you have 80 left over in that bucket. So that's at 30. That 3 cents is enough, or 2.5 cents, whatever, is enough to get you the $200,000 for roads. Trust me, I played this thing way too much.
Girl, I've been living this thing.
I was sideways. I was cross-eyed. Trying to figure out all the, obviously, chicken scratch.
I feel like 30 is healthier for a longer term, but I am not voting.
And it still lowers at 14 cents. I know it's not exactly where you want to go, but it gets the roads done.
You haven't said anything.
Yeah, I have.
Okay, say it again.
I'd still like to see it in the 20s, but.
How about 29.9?
How about 29.99?
Oh, yeah, 29.99.
You know, we've been able, it's a fact, we have been able to survive on a.
Yeah, I've already
I'm
given
sorry,
it a
she's
little.
not.
I know.
I was just gonna confirm, it's a fact, we have definitely been able to survive on 20, a rate in the 20s.
I hate that word,
But-
survive.
In the past.
But survive is nerve-wracking. And with, you know, costs over the last 5 years, with costs over the last 5 years, average going up 15%, and we don't see 15% relief in sight, that right there, you know, cost of doing all the things we want to do is not the same as when we've been surviving over the last, in the 20s. So I'm not trying to convince you to change, Faith, I'm just saying we're saying you'd like to see it in the 20s and addressing some other comments that we were all making about that.
Just, what was that your number?
That's a number I'm comfortable with. It brings it down, of course, you know, but it also is where stuff can get done frivolously, but have enough to where we can get things done and still, that's where I'm going.
At 30 cents, just one more thing and then I'll hush. The changes that you were saying in here worked and didn't work. At 30 cents, those changes work. Or what you said didn't work.
Okay, when I
Go back
rework this
into
and give
the
it back
budget,
to
that
you,
makes
some
sense.
of them I'm not gonna change, like I'm not gonna change those
No, that's
payroll
what I'm saying,
numbers,
like the
but-
ones that you
But
wanted.
we'll make sure.
The way that you presented it, put it at 30 cents. So, just saying,
Yeah,
like the
we
ones
can
that you
balance
said
it
we
at
can't
30.
change, and we can balance those later and figure out which bucket it's all gonna go into, it would, the proposed things that you stated you wanted to keep versus the ones you wanted to remove and move around and whatnot, would put it at 30 cents. So, I should have told you that ahead of time, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I already know that,
I
but
figured
say it,
that's
'cause
why I would
everybody
give
needs
you
to hear
the-
what you're saying.
That's why I give you the specifics.
Right, so when you decide, when council decides what the number is, then it's up to us to go in and change the budget and make sure that it works to the direction you want to go.
Right.
So if you want money in roads, and at the bottom line is 30 cents, then we will shave and move things around to make that work, and then bring it back to you.
How much money in
For it
roads
to
does that
be
give us?
200.
You figure it out.
It was,
By my calculation, it would be 200.
Okay.
And then we only
quite a bit.
need
It's,
like 112.
it has quite a few number.
It's like
sorry.
196 or something like that, but we only needed the 112.
Is the road, is the roads
112
just the
for what?
roads, not the ditches?
No, it's drainage, it's a comprehensive plan
Right,
using
so
a
it's not
grant.
just the asphalt that we're
No,
gonna pay for?
no,
It's
sir.
digging those ditches?
It's a whole,
moving the dirt.
yeah, it's a Custard roadside dish, Indian roadside
And
dish,
inflation happening every day on the
Tejas,
shots.
Surrey, wagon road rate replacement, the
Which is why you don't
replacement.
worry about budget.
Okay, look at it.
You never touch it.
So it's on there.
This thing came from like a grant that's gonna
Yeah.
pay for
Go ahead,
it.
y'all know the
We're
Can I
difference.
speak?
Yes, ma'am.
So we're currently at 44 cents.
Other than that, I mean, other than
I'm
this
sorry,
grant
Kelly.
money.
Hey, Bern,
Yeah, this is.
I'm sorry, Kelly just had something she wanted to share.
You're right. So if you ask me to vote right now, I'm going to tell you 37 cents. Am I willing to budge? A little bit. I'm willing to compromise. So if we're currently at .44 and you two, which I'm going to say is the majority at the moment, is at .25. That's a difference of 19. You divide it by 2, that gives you 34, well, it gives you 9.5. So that brings you down to 34.5. So that is the compromise number between between 44 and 25. Which is a very healthy reduction, 10.5.
So I agree with that. My thought is on it that if we do 30, we keep that 200,000 in for roads every year. You can stay at 30 and your value is gonna fluctuate every once in a while, I get that. But even if you stay at 30, it's like smack in the middle. Pretty sure that's what we were all talking about doing last year too.
33 is smack in the middle.
So, that's how I came up with the 30, because you keep that for future growth and future projects and everything else, you've got that built, and if you don't spend it, then you can put it in our other accounts. I'm not gonna say the word reserve.
Payment also goes up every day.
Inflation goes up every day.
Every day.
Jake, 32.
I'm trying not to talk because you should just leave it open and let people.
Barnes, do you feel like a 14% lower, you would have accomplished what you ran for?
14%,
It's not-
14%.
That's what I know. But do you feel that that would hold you, accountable for what you
Well,
ran?
I came up from 20 to 22.
No,
And then I sat,
know.
wait a minute,
Yeah.
you asked me a question. I sat in here Friday for 2 hours to try to work this out with Jennifer and Lori.
I appreciate
So I
that.
went up to 25 cents because that's what Jennifer said we needed. And now,
But was that
listening to
with roads or
Justin,
no roads?
and
Obviously,
we're at 30,
no.
that's it for me.
Right.
I mean, I'll say something else since all of y'all are, commenting. I sat in here almost a year ago in September with a whole bunch of people, way more than are in here tonight. And everybody in that meeting begged this council not to raise these taxes,
I know.
okay? Everybody, okay? Whoever was up here stared at us, did not open their mouths, did not comment, did not say one word to us, did not care what we said, unlike us, in my opinion. And just went ahead and did it, except for one guy, Jake. This was 4-1, okay? So, so we're sitting in here, and as far as I'm concerned, I've compromised. I've done all I'm gonna do.
Well, that's why I'm
To
saying.
answer your question, yes, I think,
You're happy with 30?
yeah.
Because I mean, it seems to me that.
Because I'm telling y'all,
Yeah.
y'all came here so you can say your piece.
Sure.
There's a bunch of people live in this town, okay, that want this tax lowered. I know that.
I was here.
There you go,
that night.
thank you. There's
I
a
was
bunch
here.
of people.
But
Talk to
I'm
me.
okay with the 30.
Okay, okay.
Well, that's what I'm saying, I just
That's
want to make
why-
sure you were comfortable with that, because it seems to be across the board that ideally it wouldn't be everybody's choice, but it seems to be that we could
Compromise.
make the constituents happy, there would still be extra money for roads, and then there would be, so I just want, because I know you were wanting to make sure that you.
I wouldn't say it if I didn't.
No, I didn't hear you say 30, that's why I was asking.
And there's always next year after you all know a hell of a lot more about the city. There's always next year.
They don't know that.
When everybody's gonna know more.
No, I'm with you.
Okay, so it sounds like you might have a consensus at 30.
I'm happy with 30. I think it's workable. If this is workable, 30 is definitely workable. You can read it out yourself.
But you already know it wouldn't be my first choice, but
I know.
I'm happy to work with whatever y'all decide that we're gonna work with the parameter. Okay, so Kelly, I have you not pleased with 30, thinking 34 and a half is a midway compromise. And Faith, I don't know what your thoughts are for the consensus or not.
I just keep thinking Burns states it so well. I hate to say it again. I'd like to see it as low as we possibly can. I just don't know how to say it any better than he said it, so.
I guess the question is, are you going to be willing to work with, for 44 to 30, the same conversation that Angela was going to comment on?
Come back around to me.
Are you feel like you're comfortable with 30?
Yeah, I wouldn't have said it. I know.
3 times.
Just making sure,
Well,
sorry.
we had
Wanna
this
make sure I
conversation
heard
once
it.
before, and left the room not everybody on the same page, so we're just,
We can't do point 2999.
I mean, does that look like you're splitting hairs to your constituents? All right, we're going to prepare this budget at a rate of 30 cents. We will publish tomorrow so that we meet our 7-day requirement before our city council meeting next Tuesday. And we're going to move this baby forward at 30 cents. 30 cents. 30 cents. I mean, we're gonna have to make some sacrifices in all the places, including roads, but we'll put everything that we can afford to put there, because that's what council is saying you want to do, right? Okay. All right. I don't think you had anything else, Nate, procedurally, anything else that we need that you know of? I don't think so. Just
No, ma'am, but I would say, you know, one thing is that, you know, I think this was awesome tonight. This was a great time because you had people discussing and coming to some sort of compromise where nobody's happy. You know, that's the best compromise, you know, that you can have. I mean, there's, you know, when it's explained to me, you know, there's 2 diametrically opposite sides here, and you know, and everybody's like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Look, I got stories." You know, you ever had a resident join with a neighboring city to sue your city? You don't know.
Oh, we got nothing then. All right.
No.
That ain't the budget.
But I'm just telling you all, you know, this is what democracy is all about. You know, and this is what, you know, it should be. And I just want to thank you all for letting me be a part of it tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.